What's up guys, JV2017 here, and today I'm bringing you a Fallout 4 commentary on Karma, a system that is noticeably absent from the current Fallout game. Now a lot of people, including myself, were a little disappointed or at least surprised to hear that a system which provided a lot of the role-playing aspect of the previous games had been stripped away from Fallout 4. Now don't get me wrong, I absolutely welcome change and I think it's necessary for the series to evolve, right? We want some change here and there, but Karma was something I always kept in mind in Fallout 3 and New Vegas. Was I going to play a spawn of Satan, god-awful, just evil character, or was I going to stay in my comfort zone with a morally good vault dweller? Was I going to try to straddle the line between playing good and evil and, be a morally ambiguous character? These are things I factored into every single character I made in those games, but if we're being honest, Fallout 4 is a fundamentally different game. I think there's enough new and different going on that after playing for a week or so after launch, I didn't realize I was missing this Karma system. I didn't really even think about it. There's so much more going on. So the game's been out for 3.5 months now, and a lot of us are trying to squeeze more content out of this massive game before the DLC releases. I don't think it's exactly fair to say that Fallout 4 needs a Karma system, because I feel that the game succeeds for what it is without that. It really does, and I think it's hard to categorize this game as strictly an RPG or an FPS. Certainly it's more RPG than FPS, but we've got better gunplay this time around, and it's really good. It's a lot better than it used to be in 3 or New Vegas. On the other hand, we've got this voice protagonist, which a lot would argue, and I agree with this actually, that it takes away from the RPG element because we can't role play as much, and I think that's just Bethesda trying to keep with the times and also try something different. With all that said, in retrospect, I thought it would be worth talking about why we probably didn't get a Karma system in this game, if we could see one in the future, and how that could possibly work. I think the biggest thing we can point to in terms of not getting a Karma system is the voiced protagonist. Bethesda decided to go in this direction, having a voiced character instead of, just silent mute with all the text options, fairly early in development, if I had to guess, since, we know that these voice actors that were working on, the male and female Sole Survivor were recording lines for several years. So they knew pretty early on that they wanted to go in this direction. I think Todd has talked about that before. But if you just think about what it would take in terms of voice acting to act out varying karmic levels, it's insane. From a sheer, is this even possible? Can we do this with the time and resources we have perspective, from Bethesda's standpoint, I have to assume that they scrapped that idea of Karma in favor of the voice protagonist, because how could they do that? How could they, conceivably do that, have different dialogue options depending on what your karma is? It would just magnify the amount of voice acting that would have been required in order to pull that off. I'm not saying that was a good or bad decision necessarily, but it's something we absolutely have to think about in terms of, possibility. Was it realistic for them to include all of that? And I don't think it really was. So this decision, I think, resulted in everyone going down the same 3 paths of the same character. You could play the good guy Soul Survivor, the sarcastic Soul Survivor, or the dick, the really mean guy. And the problem is, it really just felt like we were being mean. I really never felt like I was truly evil playing, the mean Soul Survivor. Don't get me wrong, there are some very evil choices, some very awful things you can do, but it feels like you can't be straight, just god-awful evil in every situation. That's absolutely what we could do in 3 in New Vegas. Looking into the future, Bethesda is bringing a ton of improved features, things we've already seen, but also introducing new ones over the next 3 months with DLC, new survival mode, all of that. So, do we think it's possible that we see a morality/karma system introduced? Personally, I think it's a long shot, and mainly because of this voice protagonist. I don't think they could retrofit the game to support such an extensive system, and it really is when you think about it. A lot of, how quests are built, outcomes and all that were probably built around karma in previous games. They weren't, clearly, in this game. And certainly they're not going to re-record a ton of lines for quests or anything like that. That's just not really feasible. Still, I think it's possible in some form or fashion, given how they're refreshing survival mode, for example, and introducing new features via updates and, patches, which are all free and whatnot. I think it's possible. There's a very small chance. I think it's possible we could see something implemented in this game. I think it could work. Before we talk about how it could work, let's talk about how it used to work. So in Fallout 3, if I remember correctly, it was just a personal reflection of the choices you made over a playthrough. That's how karma was. So you made a decision and it said you lost karma or you gained karma, and that kind of allowed you to role play, but it was more of a personal way to track that. It didn't really affect the outside world. However, in New Vegas, it was essentially the same, but even more important because it did affect how the world perceived the player. So if you were evil before traveling to a new town for the first time, like Nipton or something, then people somehow knew you were evil and already treated you like you were evil. Now, obviously, that doesn't make any sense. It's a valid criticism of New Vegas if you wanted to catch anyone by surprise or, go for any kind of realism. That's not how it works in real life. You can't, you don't already know that someone's evil until they do something evil. I think that added a different kind of flavor to karma in that game. I'm not bashing that system, but I don't think it makes the most sense. However, it could work in a certain way like Mass Effect with Fallout 4. Making evil choices or good choices would build your karma in either direction, just like normal, and once you hit a certain tier, you're allowed to make extremely impactful karmic decisions that you couldn't otherwise. So let's just set up an example here. Let's say you're playing a good karma character, so you've already been making good karma choices, and then you go and do the Secret of Cabot House quest. And spoiler warning, if you haven't played this quest, stop listening for about the next minute. So let's say you have more than the 2 standard options of setting Lorenzo free or killing him on the spot down in, that insane asylum. Let's say there's a very good option to pacify Lorenzo, make him, good essentially in order to make him and his family come together again. He's a good guy again. Somehow you're able to pacify him. And in order to take that action, you need a certain amount of good karma. You need a pretty good amount of good karma in order to pull that off. Otherwise, that option is just not available to you. You just can't do that. On the other hand, there's also a very evil option to make Lorenzo die a very slow and painful death instead of just killing him on the spot. There's already a pretty evil option in that mission. You set Lorenzo free and then help him kill his family. That's pretty freaking evil. But I think it's also would be evil to make him suffer. Kill him, but make him suffer. And just like the very good option, you would need a very high amount of evil karma in order to pull that off. Now, this is just an example. I don't think they would actually go back and add these choices to the side quest. This is just an example of how this system could work. It's just I would say it's just a little bit of a different spin on what they already had. And additionally, they could weave in some really impactful decisions. Like I said, these karmic decisions would be, very extreme one way or another, but make these, actually impact the world. That's something I'm really missing from this Fallout. I want to make decisions that impact the world around me, that eradicate, a faction. Like I've said, the Children of Adam, I don't really care about the Children of Adam. I really wish I could play a very evil character and eradicate them somehow, maybe through, Far Harbor, the DLC that's coming up, because they are involved in that DLC. So I'd like to see them implement this system and also weave it into allowing the player to make more impactful decisions in future content. And that's honestly an ideal situation. That is ideally how it could work in the future. And again, like I've said before, I don't think they can retrofit the game. This is for future content. So realistically, what could they do? I think they could add a very light karmic system, just like in Fallout 3, that doesn't involve any new dialogue. You just make decisions, assign certain karmic values. Bethesda could have assigned certain values to the existing content and just have a bar that tracks it. So at least the player, we can track how we are in terms of karma, instead of just, oh, I made this decision, that decision. We actually have something we can see on the screen and in the game, and maybe tie that into your companion affinity. That's how it used to work. Companions that are generally morally good maybe will like a good karma soul survivor like that. That makes sense, and on and on. I'm really just spitballing here, but in all honesty, it's a system I miss, and I would be so happy to see it return in some way. So I'd like to hear from you guys. Do you miss a karma system in Fallout games? Would you like to see one? And how do you think it could work feasibly? I know a lot of you are going to say, go back and retrofit the game. I just don't think that's realistic. I'm really wondering if you guys think there's a realistic possible way they could implement it into the game. Share all of that below. Alright guys, today we talked about the possibility of a karma system in Fallout 4, and next time we will cover more Fallout on my channel, so stay tuned for Fallout 4 tips and tricks videos. If you learned something new or just enjoyed this video, remember to hit that like button. I would really appreciate it. And don't forget to subscribe for more DLC coverage, build guides, and general tips and tricks videos. Talk to you guys next time. Peace.